AI or artificial intelligence? Is it under siege? Today we're going to take a look. Stay tuned for Prudent Money. Good afternoon. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thanks so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. If you've got a question for me, I want to invite you to go to the website at www.prudentmoney.com. While you're at the website, make sure that you send us any questions that you have and sign up for the Prudent Money e-letter, and we can keep you posted as to what we are posting on the website and at social media. So just go there, sign that, and we'll get you taken care of. It's all at the website, www.prudentmoney.com. Today I want to talk a little bit about artificial intelligence and whether or not this is something that is going to be a reality. And I know that sounds crazy, but there's some interesting things that are going on with artificial intelligence. Now, as I was prepping and researching and putting everything together for today's program, it just dawned on me that, Joe Biden's big push was for, by a certain date in the very near future, we were going to have a environment and a country dominated by electric vehicles, EVs. And it was just all going to be a great transition away from gas and the environmental concerns and all that kind of thing. And I'll never forget, they were interviewing one of his cabinet members, and the question to the cabinet member, I can't remember who it was, but the question was, if you look at the way we're set up, we don't have the infrastructure to really handle this type of load on the system and a switch this drastic to electric vehicles. And what do you say to that? It was the interviewer's question, and he said, "Oh, we'll build it," as if this was no more than building and putting a building together and we'd be fine. No, you can't just build it. I mean, we're talking real infrastructure issues that were with electronic vehicles. And what I think once Trump became president again, it all went away very quickly. But there was no way I don't think we are at a point with the electric grid that we're going to be able to do something like that. So it was one of these situations that was really pushed by the White House and was kind of doomed from the start. And of course, a lot of money was invested into electric vehicles. A lot of car manufacturers were building for the future. And can you imagine putting all that out there to find out that this is going to go away? I don't think that artificial intelligence is going to go away, but there is a support mechanism by the White House to get this done. And of course, you've got some of the most powerful people and powerful companies that are leading the charge. And of course, you can see this in the stock price of the top 7 AI companies. But this doesn't mean that America wants this. Not at all. And, I look at it this way, and I tend to look at it from, as you know, both sides. And the other side that I look at it from is that, on the one hand, you've got the notion that AI is going to make America a better place. I look at it from the standpoint of there's a lot of bad that can come with. And when I say that, I also want to make sure that I'm a very positive person. I critically think through these things, and I think about the people who will use something that's generally accepted for good and use it for bad, and that just puts more of the opportunities for that to happen. Not a reason to not do it, but I think that there's not been enough of that thought through and really researched and understood. But that's just my opinion. But there was an interesting article today in the Wall Street Journal, which gives it a lot of credibility. The American rebellion against AI is gaining steam. And I was real interested to as I read through this, because I'm thinking to myself, this is exactly how so many people feel today about artificial intelligence. Is that, I can ooh and ah and just be really impressed by ChatGPT and the just in a nanosecond, the information that it produces for me because I asked it a question. But beyond that, I don't understand how any of this works. And I'm not alone. I mean, I talk to people all the time, ask them questions about what they think. They have no idea what to think. And I kind of feel like the EVs when Biden was in office. I feel like here's an idea that's being crammed down our throats, and we're going to have to like it or not, accept it or not. Well, not so fast. And I think that this article really highlights some of the big problems AI has from the standpoint, definitely from the standpoint of being accepted and without all the things that go along with it. We'll talk about that. But here's a good example of this. Delivering a commencement address at the University of Arizona, Schmidt, and that's the former Google chief executive, Eric Schmidt, told students the, quote, technological transformation wrought by artificial intelligence will be larger, faster, and more consequential than what came before. Like some other graduation speakers mentioning AI, Schmidt was met with a chorus of boos. In one poll after another in recent weeks, respondents have overwhelmingly voiced concerns about AI, a challenge to claims by industry executives that their technology would gain popularity by improving people's lives. Consumers resent energy price jumps exacerbated by the spread of these data centers, and we'll talk a lot about data centers here in just a second. Workers fear widespread job losses, and this was to me very interesting. You had somebody that was associated with the White House, not in the White House, because they're very, very, very careful about what they say about AI. But you have Trump investing his own money into AI stock, and he has to disclose that. Of course, it also makes me wonder why he has the ability to do that, because technically I would imagine he's trading off of personal conversations he's had and what he knows, which is called insider trading, but they let that go for some reason, which I do not understand. But here's another story. In April, a 20-year-old Texas man allegedly threw a Molotov cocktail at an OpenAI chief executive Sam Altman's home and made threats, at the company's San Francisco headquarters, according to a federal complaint filed against him. A few days earlier, someone fired 13 shots at the front door of an Indianapolis councilman who had recently approved a data center. Pollsters, this was interesting. Pollsters and historians say the souring of public opinion is all but unprecedented in its speed. I don't think I've ever seen something intensified this quickly. And then there was this, and this is very telling as well. Very, very, very telling. The poll showed, and this was it says Gregory Ferenstein, who conducted a recent poll with researchers at Stanford University and the University of California, Berkeley, which technically, you have a very liberal, obviously, population there. And I would think technically, they would probably be against this. But the poll showed about 30% of Democrats think America should accelerate AI innovation as quickly as possible. Now, that tells me that politicians, 30% of Democrats, think we've got to, it's kind of one of these things where we got to silently, however, build it as quickly as possible. And when you do that, you miss things, you cause problems, and then you figure out down the road, oh, this takes way more electricity than we thought. And I mean, the problems are endlessly. And you think about everything that's attached to AI. If we have one problem, we really have a big, big problem. So we don't want the voter body of America to find that out. So let's get it built, because once we get past that critical line, they've got to live with it. They have to deal with it. Too late now. So, should accelerate AI innovation as quickly as possible. Compared with roughly half of Republicans that say that it should be done quickly as possible, and 77% of tech founders, of course, everybody in the tech world, they understand it, they know what it does, and they see the future. And I think that this is what, just as we pause here for just a second, I think this is the big problem with AI, is that nobody is telling the general public the benefits of AI and talking about what it can and how it will make life better. There's no question. I mean, you look back, and there's a tie into this, which we'll talk about. But if you look back and you look at all the technology that came as a result of the big tech boom in the 90s, technology has come a long way and done amazing things for everybody's life, from the standpoint of making it easier. Unbelievable with technology. But this is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. We are up against a break. Way more to come. Stick around. We'll be right back. Hello, this is Bob Brooks. Proverbs 22:3 and Proverbs 27:12 are the exact same verse word for word. I call them the stewardship verses of risk. A prudent person foresees danger and takes precautions. The simpleton goes blindly on and suffers the consequences. On the Prudent Money Radio Show, we teach about risk, how to identify it, how to figure it out, and what to do about it. We believe that to be a prudent steward, you have to be a good risk manager. Listen to the Prudent Money Radio Show on Bible School Radio 91.3. Prudent Money, home of the modern-day steward movement.
Dynamic, practical, life-changing.
There's no point in going to church and not letting the Christ who gave birth to the church on the day of Pentecost change your life.
Join us each day as Pastor Paul Shepherd applies the timeless truth of Scripture to everyday life. It's Destined for Victory on this great station.
Weekday afternoons at 3:30 here on Bible School Radio, KDKR.
This is Rob Randall, your host and teacher of the Invisible War radio program. The Invisible War is the study of God's Word on how to walk in Christ's victory in the spiritual battles we face against the powers of darkness. Join me every Sunday morning at 9 right here on KDKR and KYJC in Commerce, your station for life.
Welcome back. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thanks so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. Got a question for me? Go to the website at www.prudentmoney.com, and there is a link at the top of the page that says Ask Bob. Just click through, and we'll get you taken care of. That easy to get information. We're talking about the public outcry against AI and how it's building, and so you have the race to the finish. You've got, will the public outcry make a difference, or will AI just push right through it and get to a line in the sand where it's critical? If they get it passed, it's done, and they finish the race and beat the people who are not happy about it. That would be the wrong way to go, and I think that it's obvious that they've got to do something to make this a better situation. And there's a good bit of this article that talks about a rising political issue, and we'll see how much of it comes up in the midterms. But the The data centers are a real big concern, and they should be the big concern. And talking about communicating the advantages of AI, I was just thinking about this. The supporters of AI have a big problem. They're not communicating the pros. It's such a huge PR problem. But they have even bigger problems just because this isn't something that's just easy to explain the upside. I mean, it's almost as if you're in a country where electricity doesn't exist, and you don't know a world where that it does exist, and you've got everybody trying to create electricity, and there's they don't get the fact that different things can be powered by electricity, and all the things that come out of this world, this incredible innovation. Excuse me. So let's talk a little bit about these data centers, because this is really at the center of the problem. Data centers provide the backbone for cloud computing and AL, streaming, banking, and internet services, but they also come with significant downsides. Here's some of the major cons. Energy consumption is a big one. They use enormous amounts of electricity to power servers and cooling systems. These large AI-focused facilities can consume as much power as a small city. Stress on the electrical grid. I don't know about you, but that is a big concern of mine. In some regions, rapid data center expansion is straining local power grids, increasing concerns about blackouts, infrastructure upgrades, and higher utility costs for residents. You have to keep up with changes which might make the situation worse. Water usage. Many data centers use water-based cooling systems in drought-prone areas. This can create controversy because these facilities may consume millions of gallons of water annually because they need it. Yet, what about the people who live in the town? And I'm even seeing hearing stories about where the towns that are getting these data center projects, you've got people getting up and moving because they don't want to be around it. Environmental impact. Of course, this could contribute to carbon emissions, all the things that are proposed to be a problem. Diesel generator pollution, that's interesting. Increased land development, electronic waste from outdated hardware. You see, totally different world. Noise pollution. Residents near data centers sometimes complain about constant humming from cooling fans and backup systems operating 24/7. Limited local employment, higher land and utility costs. I mean, the list is large. Dependence on technology infrastructure, which as we go forward and we start thinking about the potential for any kind of terror attack on our system, a grid system, not a good thing. And of course, expansion concerns. You get one level built and it's ready for the next. I mean, constant expansion by artificial intelligence. Some analysts now worry that power demand from AI-related data centers could outpace energy infrastructure growth in certain regions. So, how does this affect the stock market? Well, first problem is that AI stocks have carried the stock market through enormous amounts of time and made tremendous amounts of money. The 7 stocks. But if you look at today, the makeup of the S&P 500, you'll see that the vast majority, where you do have representative of 7 or 8 AI stocks that probably make up about 30%, the vast majority of the rest of that 70% are losing money. So it's definitely what AI stocks are doing. That's how powerful that they are. But, it's no different than what happened in the 90s, except it's bigger and there's more at stake. But back in the 90s, I remember this as if it were yesterday, being an advisor during the tech boom. Everybody thought tech was going to change the world. More so, there wasn't as much of the public outcry right at this point, because this was, a lot of this was easier to understand versus what's going on now. But you have this scenario where the market is just going gangbusters. We're having the same type of tech, tech super stock rally. And then what ended up happening, you get all these tech companies coming on, being developed, and you're having, and I'll never forget this, I went to a meeting, an investor meeting for this small tech startup back in 1998 or 99. And they basically handed out a sheet of paper, what's called a pro forma. And what a pro forma is that is your idea on the numbers of what kind of numbers that this would create if investors fully funded and backed the project. Of course, it could be like saying, I'm just telling you what I think. My company is going to make $1 million next year, and then we're going to do this, and we're going to do that, then we're going to make another $200 million, or whatever the numbers are, and this is what it's going to look like if you invest today. I mean, that's just all opinion. It's not necessarily fact. Only fact is at the end when it's all done, and did it work? So you had all these companies. In fact, you had some of these companies that spend millions of dollars to advertise during the Super Bowl. Never will forget this. And the next year, the vast majority of those companies were out of business. And then, of course, the tech bubble burst, and you had everything that goes along with that. And so it slowed down the process. But now, we've got the AI revolution going on at this point. Something, though, that is very interesting when you look at the tech bust. I mean, it was definitely a tech bubble. This is definitely an AI. I mean, I think it's hard to argue against that this was not an AI bubble, but I think it is for sure. I mean, you look at 3 different metrics to compare the two. 4 different metrics, actually. And the first one is there a mania in the stock market? How do you define a mania? Well, it's a mania because everybody thinks that technology stocks are going to continue to go to the moon, and they put more and more and more and more money to it. And so it's following the crowd has not always been a good long-term investment strategy, but that's what you have, and that has been seen in tons of different examples through the many decades back to the 1800s of when stock market investing was started. So that's the first thing. Do you have a mania? I think we definitely have a mania. Our margin accounts, where are they in this whole situation? A margin account is where I can, say I have $500,000 in a margin account. I can borrow against that margin account, let's say up to $250,000. I get the $250,000. Because this is going to make me rich, I take the $250,000 and buy more tech stock. And there is where you have your problem, is you're not using your brain to think about the impact of risk. The market crashes. The brokerage company says you need to pay back what you don't have. And it starts a big spiral, a downward spiral. Margin accounts, margin debt, it was at a record level back in the late 90s. Today, it's even higher at a record level. So you got that one there. The second one that you have in place is the valuations of these stocks. These stocks are not worth what we're paying per share for, and they're highly valued stocks. Typically, historically speaking, when stocks get that overvalued, they lose a ton of money to come back into value. So, and the other thing is that there is a gap between what the public thinks and knows and understands about AI, and then what they are going through the build out process of AI. Tech companies are, and that gap is a big problem, and served to be a big problem during the 90s, which slowed everything down. I know it sounds crazy, but that could be one of the better things to happen to the tech industry, is for it to go through a downturn and kind of start over slower and rebuild. Not that I'm wanting that to happen. I'm just saying that's just something to think about. A lot to unpack today, and we'll see how this turns out. I will say one thing here before I wrap it up, that they took a survey of the vast majority of CEOs who have stepped down have done so because of the implementation of AI. So, I don't know. Give us. It's an interesting story, and we'll see how it pans out. Hey, this is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thank you so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. If you got a question for me, please go to the website at www.prudentmoney.com, because we are all out of time. So we do meet again next time. Keep the faith, and have a great rest of the day.
That's all the time we have for today. Questions or comments for Bob, or to find out more great information like what you've just heard, visit www.prudentmoney.com. Be sure to join Bob Brooks again for the next edition of Prudent Money.